And you're very welcome back. And well, it's time for our Facebook review and our book review on Facebook. And joining me in the studio tonight, I have got Connie McGranaghan and Tina Garry. Ladies, you're very welcome.
Thanks, Jean.
So tell me now, what just gives a wee synopsis of the story, Connie?
Right. Well, the story sort of centred around you, who was a woman from Tokyo, and it was based on her life following her devastating loss. She lost her mother and she lost her daughter in the tsunami in Tokyo in March 2011. So it began with her trying to find some sort of peace, and she was a radio presenter. So during one of her shows, she found out about a phone box. It was a disconnected phone box where people could go to talk, pretend essentially to talk to their loved ones or people that were bereaved. So she decided to make the trek to this phone box, which took her, it was a fair wee bit away. And during this, she met up with some very interesting characters, and none more so than She became very good friends with, and that escalated then. So that was the concept, is this phone box, which is actual true story. So the phone box does actually exist. I think about 300 kilometres away from Tokyo. And so while it was based on fact, it was a work of fiction. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So it was interesting.
And Tina, did it appeal to you, the fact that it was a true story, that there was actually a phone box that you could talk to your departed loved ones?
I think it certainly helped, especially given the context. I mean, we all remember the horrible Boxing Day tsunami of Christmas Has Gone Past. You know, it was ever present in my mind, because you could imagine the horror, and it was kind of Yui's life post tsunami. I loved the whole idea of the phone box. I thought it was a beautiful way to help people manage their grief. I was very struck by the parallel. Yui, like yourself, was a radio presenter, and she didn't struggle to communicate whenever she was on air. She could really articulate herself really well. But whenever she was trying to reach out to those that she had lost, she couldn't articulate her grief at all, and was quite a closed character. So I found that parallel really interesting in her as a character as well.
And you had suffered so much. She'd lost her daughter and her mother in the tsunami, and as you said, she heard of this phone box on the radio. Somebody phoned in, yes, and to talk about someone that had passed them. And you know, the phone box, I think it's sort of a symbol that it did help people to deal with their grief.
Yeah.
And the characters, what did you think of her?
I liked her, but we were just saying before we went on air there that she was quite, like, I suppose they're a different culture, but she was from a different culture to us. So at times I found her a wee bit annoying, because I would be an impatient person and she wasn't. She was very, very, very patient, and she was a bit of an overthinker. Mm-hmm. You know, when she was thinking about, She's daughter Hannah, when she grew up, and she went through so many different possibilities, even down to, what food and uniforms, and she was just a wee bit too much of an overthinker. Mm. But essentially, she was a very, very good person. She was a very calm person. And I think she wanted to be a good mother to Hannah. And that's why she was the way she was. Mm. I loved the bit where she did, when she met the guy, or she saw the guy that was mentally unstable in the community centre after the tsunami. And he was, remember, looking through the frame. And then that she started doing that. I loved that aspect of her. When she saw she in the phone box, and she was saying that his head was in part of this frame and his hand was in this frame, and the way then that she bought Hannah the frame for her birthday and showed her, and introduced her to the concept. Mm. I like that.
And I suppose really that it wasn't a thriller or an action book, Tina, and you sort of knew from the beginning what was going to happen, that where you're told in the back cover that you meet Taseki, and that they form a relationship, and you sort of can gauge that they're going to become partners.
there's certainly an inevitability to that romance. You know, you're waiting for it to happen. I felt that it was a wee bit of a slow burner, the development of that relationship, because they weren't together and then they were together, and it was like, oh, okay, that's very quick. You know, I felt as if that could have been developed a wee tiny bit more. I really enjoyed the novel, but I felt that in some cases like that was a wee tiny bit slow, and some parts were a bit rushed over. I don't want to give any spoilers away, but there's a part in the novel where her health is endangered, her safety is endangered, and that just, you know, it's quite a central point, a pivotal point in the novel, and then all of a sudden it's just brushed over and everything's moved on with. So I would have liked a few things like that to have been developed a little bit further. I did like the parallels between the fact that he had a daughter around, you know, what would have been her daughter's age had she lived, and the fact that she worried about trying to replace the role of being, you know, Hannah's mother, and then worried about her replacing her daughter. So I thought there was a few interesting parallels in that, but I did feel that it moved slowly in places. Like
there were parts
really,
of it that you could have.
Yeah, I really wanted, you know, because it was such an emotionally charged novel, I really wanted the tearjerker. I was really waiting for, you know, this onslaught of emotion, and it kind of just really stayed on an even keel, you know. And and maybe it's a very clever point by the author, you know, that grief is just always there and doesn't change. But I just wanted the mascara to run, you know. I just wanted the tearjerker that didn't come.
And of course, Taziki's daughter Hannah, she didn't talk after his wife died.
Yeah, she was non-verbal after losing her mother, and that was lovely the way they managed that as well. And I suppose maybe Yui's part in her life helped her to really develop as a character as well. And it does give you that sense of hope. It's a book very much about hope more than grief.
There was a bit of warmth there, wasn't there, between you and Hannah, she's daughter. I loved that Hannah accepted her so much. You know, after her mother had passed away, I know the time had moved on, but you know, the way they bonded over the food they were eating, it was quite Irish, wasn't it?
Wondering, you know, would that go wrong? I was waiting for a cliffhanger. What has to go wrong? But I suppose Robert Frost used the quotation, if there's one thing I've learned about in life, it goes on. And I suppose for the characters, even though they're managing their grief, it does eventually just go on for them. And I thought that was lovely too, but I wanted there to be a bit more of a punch, or a little bit more excitement somewhere, or a cliffhanger somewhere along the way.
The one thing that I would have liked more is what was Zuki-san's story? You know, that why did he set up the phone box there in the first place? Like, you know, had he suffered from grief? And I remember reading Christy Moore's autobiography years and years ago, long before my father died, actually, and that's over 20 years ago. And he said after his mother died that before she died, he could only speak to her on the phone or face to face, but after she died, he could talk to her any place, anywhere, and he did. And I sort of thought that was really for the phone box, that it symbolised you can talk to someone. And just on the news yesterday, I saw that there was a monument being built out of wood in Warwickshire to symbolise all the people who had died over COVID.
Right.
And people could leave something belonging to them there, and it's actually going to be burned in a ritual in a few weeks' time. And I suppose the phone box was the same. It was a kind of a symbol or something solid that you could go and you could express your grief to your loved ones.
And as well, you didn't have a grave. Or no, they did find her bodies. They did find her mother's body and her daughter's body, so she was lucky in that respect. But like as Tina was saying, like it took her almost to the end till she actually used the phone box. You know, as you say, she was so articulate on the radio, and she seemed to be so clever. The way, do you remember Take She's mother kind of liked her at the start, and then she sort of got a wee bit intimidated by her, and she was saying how different she was in real life to the way she was on the radio. And like then because you didn't get any idea of what you was like at that point, but then her mother-in-law to be gave a great description of her, so you learned more about her. Like, it was very, very cleverly written.
It's like grief completely stripped her of any personality at all. You know, she was this husk or this shell of a woman, and I suppose then it's whenever they come into her life then at the end that Hannah starts
You
to
see a
speak
bit of
again,
colour, don't you?
she becomes a much slightly colourful character, and then it comes full circle at the end that she can actually articulate how she feels.
Yeah.
Which is a nice way to come full circle at the end, you know.
I suppose everybody does deal with grief in different ways, and I think Suki-san did say that to some extent. We try to build our lives exactly like everyone else's, but not death. Everyone reacts to death in their own way, and I think Laura Imai, she brought that out, that people, some of the people characters in the book, they were angry with what had happened, and and others were just didn't know how to deal with it. So I suppose, would you agree with that, Tina?
I suppose so, yeah. I mean, Yui just doesn't, she completely internalises her grief. She can't really express how she feels to Takeshi. She can't really, you know, she again, going back to the radio personality, she can be so articulate and so, you know, confident professionally, but she just can't articulate how she feels. And I suppose the fact that it takes her all that time where she struggles with her communication, that then she comes full circle in the end. But you know, she manages. I love the little inter chapters, you know, the little interjections where you really get a deeper characterization on the characters. I love the little things that she remembered about her daughter, down to little parts of outfits or down to dreams that, you know, and ideas they would have shared with each other. Just those little inter chapters, I thought they were a really cute and clever ploy. You know, a nice way to get to know the characters that were no longer alive or that were no longer in the novel. So I thought that was clever.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you that about the structure, you know, the long chapters and the little snippets, and some of the chapters might have only had maybe 3 or 4 words, but you got to know so much about her life and the people, you know, people.
She compared Hannah with her daughter. Do you remember that part? You know, that Hannah did eat this where her daughter didn't eat this, and I thought that was lovely as well. But as you said too, because the two girls were so similar in age, that really put a whole different slant on it. You know, for her it's such a guilt thing. You know, that would she be able to love Hannah as she would have loved her own daughter, particularly when she was going through the teenage years and being a brat or whatever. You know, as I say, she'd her all grown up, and like she had to go away to come to terms with that.
There was a lovely line in the novel that complements that, where it was, we're still parents even when our children are no longer here. And I thought that was lovely as well. You know, she still felt that sense of responsibility to her daughter when her daughter wasn't with her anymore, and then she managed to maybe transfer that on to Hannah as her relationship with Takeshi grew as well.
And also I thought something nice about the book was the way that they introduced a lot of customs, like you know, the little altar that they had in houses for the dead and all. I thought that she was very clever in introducing a lot of customs from Japan in the book, as you know, as she went on.
And even little references to music or references to articles that they would have written, or paintings they would have seen. It just seemed that helped to add a bit of depth to some of the characters, especially the characters that died, you know.
Yeah.
And the glossary at the back of the book as well helped you to understand some of the Japanese terms. I thought that was quite clever
that was
too.
very helpful, yeah, absolutely.
So Tina, what would make a good book for you? What do you think would be an ideal book for you?
I like something that's a bit quirky. I've always been a big Patrick McCabe fan. Something that is very intrinsically Irish. Patrick McCabe also infuses music, especially Irish folk music, in his work, and that kind of helps you to appreciate it on another layer. I love humour. I love something that is nice and witty. Recently, the nicest book I've read in the last 12 minutes is Seamus O'Reilly's Did You Hear Mommy Died? He's a columnist from The Guardian, from Garry. Again, essentially Irish, but it has to be something, it has to have a good story, a good plot. It has to be something, I'm an English teacher, it has to be something that's going to grab me linguistically as well, but good story, well paced.
So judging what you've just said there, how did the phone box at the Age of the World tie in with your views there?
I like the fact that it ended on a sense of hope. I like the fact that it was cleverly structured and it came full circle at the end. I liked the book. I'll stick with liked. I don't think I would go any further. I couldn't say I loved it, you know, but maybe a new departure for me in terms of especially the fact that it explores an alternative culture, given the fact that I would tend to stick to maybe Western world fiction or non-fiction. So it was definitely a new exploration for me, certainly.
And out of 10, what would you give it?
I'd probably go with around 6.5.
Okay. And Connie, your idea of a good book, and how does this tie in with it?
I would say my kind of taste would be very eclectic. I read constantly, and when I'm not reading, I would have, if I'm out walking or running, I would have headphones and listening to a book. I listen to anything and everything, but like if it doesn't grab me within the first 5, 6, 7 pages, you know, I can't take it. And I'm fussy but not fussy, if you know what I mean. I would, you know, but no, I did, like, there was a moment in this book where I thought, I'm not going to be able to finish this. Like, I am struggling here. And if I had a wee fast forward button, I would have just moved it on a wee bit, but I was afraid to miss anything, especially when I'm coming on here. But I would definitely recommend the book. And I would say to people, you know, say to my sisters or whatever, do read it, because it's a lovely book, challenging at times. But I think I would give it an 8. I did. I liked the way she wrote. She did annoy me sometimes, and I was looking back and reading her history, and I was reading about the history of the actual phone box, and I think that grabbed me more.
It's very novel.
You know, that it was true. Do you know what I mean? That this is not just something she made up, that it is true. So I thought it was the concept was lovely. So I would definitely go a wee bit higher than Tina, but I'm not an English teacher.
I'm just a cynic.
Well, ladies, thank you so much for taking time out, first of all, to read the book and to review it, and for coming on air. And as I said, once you're in, Tina, it's very hard to get out of this. Like, you know, Connie's been here before, and many thanks to yourself for volunteering to do this tonight.
I had a great time. Thank you for having me in, Jean.
Thanks a million, Jean.
And you know, it's nice to think that our departed loved ones are there somewhere, and if we talk to them, that they'll listen and they'll be out. And a lovely song that Maria McCormick wrote called "Above the Clouds." We're going to sign off with that.
Oh, lovely.
Great.